Hi guys, BuildZoid here, and today we're going to be taking a look at another DDR4 memory overclock with the Gigabyte Z390 Aorus Master. Yeah, I mean, I went from one kit to another kit, so that's all there is to it. For today, what we're running is a bunch of, as you can clearly tell from the distinctive RGB that these have. We are running the Corsair Dominator RGB memory. That I got ages and ages ago, and I'm kind of late with actually doing this, but yeah, good job me. So these are 3600 megahertz CL16, well, they're 3600, 16, 18, 18 at 1.35 volts, but of course here we're running them at 1.5 volts and not 3600 megahertz. We're going significantly faster. As you can clearly see, we've just finished 300% of HCI mem test. And I ran it all the way out to 300% because I tried to do some of this memory overclocking sometime last year. I can't remember when, and it was going really badly because I couldn't do 300%. And so this time around, sometimes when I feel more confident with the configuration, I'd run it out only to 100% because I can't be bought. Like, it takes forever, especially with 32 gigs of RAM to wait for 300%. And even now, I wouldn't consider this 100% stable. And maybe if it was in an actual tower instead of on a test bench, and the fan kind of cheating the memory temperatures. This isn't necessarily well, I still ran it out to 300% because I just don't I want to have something where it's like, okay, this is very stable. Okay, 100% pretty stable, but it's not something you should actually trust. 400% is where you should normally run out any memory test to, but I don't have the patience for that. So 300% is 75% of that, of 400%. So I do consider good enough for the purposes of this video. And also if it errors right now, then I'm just going to look like an idiot, aren't I? But yeah, so it does have a fan on it because if you shove 1.5 volts into B-die, it tends to get pretty warm, and B-die is here's the thing. The temperature of the memory sticks is not going to degrade your memory, not quickly enough for you to actually care. But what it does do is it can affect the stability quite a bit. So if you want to run high voltages, you kind of need to do something to keep the memory temperatures down. And normally the biggest issue with memory is not so much the memory itself producing a bunch of heat. It's it's your GPU cooking the memory if you're playing games. So yeah, and we're not in a tower setup, so me installing a GPU in this setup really wouldn't make a difference to it. And I guess I could try hotbox the memory sticks, but it just doesn't seem it's still not going to be a very realistic test. And I don't know, it would be all kinds of weird to try. Then I guess I could take it to the point where I'm testing at 40 degrees ambient, 50 degrees ambient, 60 degrees ambient, and it's just too much work. So anyway, I just wanted a nice clean, well, okay, it's not clean, but I wanted an overclock where it's just yeah, you can do this. You just need the right thermals for it. Run an open air test bench as your daily system. If you don't got any pets or kids, then I really don't see a problem with that. Or if your kids, or just put the test bench high enough that the kids can't reach it, and the pets can't reach it too, right? Open air test benches are great. Better memory temperatures, better CPU temperatures, better everything temperatures. Just because, well, the thing is, a case with low airflow just turns into a hot box and it makes everything worse. So anyway, so this just ran out to 300%, and I still haven't even told you what kind of settings we're running at. And I won't tell you. We're going to wait until we get into the BIOS, because first we're going to run some IDA 64. Unfortunately, I can't say this is some incredibly low latency setup because we are running 32 gigs, and these are Samsung B-die memory sticks. So, and the way you can tell that they're Samsung B-die is on Corsair memory sticks. If you look at the back, they're going to have a version number. For Samsung B-die, you're looking for, I think it's 4.31. I've mentioned the specific version number you need in some other video for sure. So it's either 4.31 or it's 4.32. Actually, I could probably... Well, no, I only have two Corsair memory kits. I don't have one with another one with 8 gig sticks. But anyway, so 39.7 nanoseconds latency, which, if you're pushing the limits on Z390, you can do 35 nanoseconds. But, we are running 32 gigs of RAM here. We are on an ATX motherboard. This is not what you would... this is... well, for actually this much capacity, it kind of is the limits, but... yeah, if you want to just the lowest possible latency, this is not the setup you would be using to try achieve that. Anyway, we look at our memory read. This is actually quite decent because we are running a relatively high frequency at pretty decent timings because it's BDI. Though, funnily enough, the memory controller on a lot of CPUs will actually restrict your TRCD, as you will soon see when we get into the BIOS. And now we're just going to do a write test. So that was 60 gigs read. And we get around 64 gigabytes write. So, it's not incredibly fast, but it's decently fast. I guess you can see the frequency right there. So I can't keep that hidden forever, I guess. 4133 megahertz is what we are running at. So we are, 513 megahertz overclock. And 533 megahertz overclock, not 13. And yeah, I chose I'm using the Z390 Aorus Master 1 because I have one, 2 because it's a T topology motherboard. So if you're going to be running a 4x8 memory configuration like we're running here, because that's what this is, you want a T topology board, because if you're not on a T topology board, you're not going to go this fast. You're not going to be able to, I'm not sure, I'm not 100% certain, but definitely with some daisy chain topologies, doing 4133 megahertz is going to be a workout. If not completely impossible. So anyway, let's get into the BIOS and take a look at the actual settings here. I can blow up the system a bit. So yeah, as you can tell, we do have fast boot enabled, which is why I just completely skipped the memory training procedure, which is why it boots so quickly. But if we disable fast boot, right here, which you should have fast boot disabled while you're doing your memory overclocking so that it retrains every time and you don't manage to, because if you don't have it enabled, if you have fast boot enabled, not disabled, you can potentially, if you just change your frequency or something, it'll actually let you go into Windows without retraining the timings. And that's really bad because you can potentially, you can go into Windows with just awful settings where it's just going to crash immediately. So you want to have fast boot disabled if you're doing any memory overclocking so that the memory retrains every time you change the frequency and anything. So anyway, I'm just going to show you a slow boot. So now I locked in basically all of the timings, so it shouldn't have too much trouble retraining, he says, as it cycles through the C codes. The thing is, if you're running high frequencies, it's just difficult to boot. So a lot of the time. Now I'm getting concerned. Come on. 31, 34, 30. It's just not fair. This was booting relatively, well, I guess fast boot, right? So that's what I get. It'll post eventually, but yeah, if you're trying to do high frequencies on large amounts of memory, you're going to have to put up with this because it's just difficult to configure everything. Mind you, I have the memory settings locked in, but the motherboard does not expose the full array of memory controller settings. So even though, I've locked this in, I have the IOLs locked because it's just to ensure that it actually is somewhat reliable in terms of posting. Because if you let the motherboard change the IOLs, it'll potentially miss them. Which, honestly, 14 is already, this is a terrible I/O latency, but that's just... Once you're at frequencies this high with this motherboard, I've just never actually seen the I/O latencies any better than that. So I was just well, that's a thing. That's part of why the latency is so high when we get into IDO and run IDA. Yeah, this is part of that. Anyway, I locked all the termination settings for the DIMMs, but this is not all of the available. There's even more settings if you... there's some BIOSes out there. I think ASRock's BIOS and the Asus BIOS doesn't hide the settings. They just label them wrong. So they're still really, it's kind of awkward to actually make use of them. But there are, Asus, ASRock, and... Asus and ASRock BIOS basically give you access to way more memory settings. Most of the time, you shouldn't actually need to touch them. So anyway, let's go through the timings. I tightened up all the tertiaries. Yeah, not really much to see here, though. So, oops. So I tightened up all the tertiaries. So this would otherwise be defaulting to 13, 13, 13 or something instead of the 11, 11, 11. Though these right here, the 7467, that's actually auto. That's what you get auto. These are tighter. Normally they'd train out to 9. And this right here, I think is actually the same as auto. So yeah, you shouldn't copy me. Like, you shouldn't copy my tertiary timings. They'll probably work if you're running a similar memory setup here. And actually, the I/O latencies. So, speaking of things you shouldn't copy, you shouldn't copy the I/O latencies off of me unless you're running exactly the same timings, because the I/O latencies depend on the frequency and a bunch of other. Well, yeah, they depend on the frequency you're running at. I think they somewhat depend on your primary timings. And maybe some of your tertiaries. You do not want to copy my I/O latencies. Like, you just let the board do its own thing with the I/O latencies, and once it sets them both to like the same number, even if it's terrible like 14, you just lock them in. And that can avoid some of the, oh, I got into Windows and my memory overclock is now suddenly really unstable for no reason. Because sometimes what'll happen is you'll like 1414 is stable, as we just saw, but with the mem test, but the motherboard, like on a reboot, it might retrain into like, I don't know, 1416, and then your round trip latencies are going to be wrong. So instead of what I have where it's 6870, you might end up with I don't know, like one channel might be at like 80 something or something, right? And the other channel will be still at 6870, which is the correct values. But because one of the channels is now just way off, that channel is going to be really unstable, and you'll suddenly get like random blue screens and stuff. So the easiest way to avoid the RTLs missing is to lock the IOLs. And if you lock the IOLs, then the RTLs generally will be correct. And this is a thing that I've done on, like, I do on X299 sometimes, Z390 quite regularly. I will lock the I/O latencies just because it's the motherboard. You know, you boot 3 times, and like, you can actually, in some cases, you can boot 3 times and get 3 different I/O latencies, and only one of those is correct. And so, you know, when you have something, and normally it should be like they'll either be the same value, so like 1414, or one down from each other. So you'll have like 1413, or you'll have 76, or 77, or 54, or 65, or 66, 55. You know, like basically they'll be basically the same value. They shouldn't be massively different. If there's a huge difference between your between one I/O latency and the other I/O latency, you got a problem. Okay, like you have a problem. They're wrong. So anyway, for the tertiaries, I tested, like, the way I set those is I just work them one tick at a time, right? So you adjust them one down. If it boots, adjust it one down again. If at some point it doesn't boot, that's when I bump it back up. Funnily enough, that seems to work just fine even for stability. Like, if you can boot it, it'll probably be stable in mem test. So that's how I set those. TREFI is at 36,000. It might be possible to run a little bit more than that, but generally, from what I've heard from from people who've actually spent like way too much time just testing TREFI limits, it tends to top out around 40,000 if you actually care about having stability. If you just want to run benchmarks, you can go all the way up to like 65,000. But yeah, for convenience, I just set it to 36,000 because that basically always works. Or 32,000 if it's something like, if there's an IC that needs a particularly high TRFC command rate. We're at 2T command rate because at 4133, you're like, there's no way it's running 1T command rate. TFall 16, TFall 16 is just as low as the TFall actually functions. You can punch in lower values, they won't do anything for your performance. So anyway, RTP 12. I tried 10, not stable. Or I think, well, the thing is, I try multiple settings at the same time, so it might have failed along with something else. And it might actually be stable at 10 instead of 12, but like, the thing is, at this point, 2 ticks of any one timing just isn't going to make that much of a performance difference, unless you're going for benchmark records, in which case, yeah, I guess, you know, this is suboptimal, but I don't care. TCCD6, that just happens to work. For TCCD SNL 4.6, so that just happens to work. Normally this would default to 4.7, but 4.6 works just fine. Then 4.8 for the WTRS and the WTRL. These 2 timings are kind of interesting because when I was messing with Rev E memory on the master, Just setting the WTRs would actually not really work, but with the B die, I set the WTRs and it works. So yeah, and by works I mean the WTRs affect they affect the WRRD SG and the WRRD DG tertiary timings. So depending on what WTR you're running, there's like a specific WRRD that you're supposed to run for those values. And with Rev E, if I change the WTR values, the WRRDs wouldn't automatically adjust. But with the B die that we're running right now from Corsair, they automatically set themselves. So yeah, but because of my earlier experience with the Rev E, I actually have them both locked into 3026, which is the correct values for 8.4. That for the 4.8 that we have up here. If it's not applying, as in, like, actually I can just do a demonstration, I think. So if we set like 2832, what it'll do is at the 2832, our WTRs will be 610 instead of 4.8, right? Even though we have them set to 4.8 here, and I think they'll take priority. I'm not sure, but they should take priority. Oh, seems like that made it a little bit easier for the board to post. So I'm probably running it really on edge, but we'll see. Because it did just, like, we do have fast boot disabled, so it is retraining. And now if we go... no, it's still at 4.8. Did it ignore me? Oh, yeah, it just ignored me here. Okay, so that's fun. One of those two... So as you can see, one of those two settings takes priority. So if we now set these to 3026... So with the Rev E, the WRRDs actually had the priority, but here it's evidently the WTRs, which is like, what? Okay, well, let's try 610. Well, 612. Let's try that. Because now I set it to 3026, so that's for the 4.8. Or maybe the BIOS is just misreporting the WTRs. That's also possible. Actually, no, because it showed the WRDs being low. Ah, damn it. Yeah, so now they're 3428, right? Which, yeah. So the WTRs sometimes don't or do take priority. So that's pretty annoying that it's not consistent, but it doesn't really matter that much. TRRD SNL, just 4.4 because that's as low as they go, you know. So you can't, like, you can try to set them lower. It just doesn't do anything for performance. So... yeah, and 4.4 is as fast as they go. TCWL16, anything lower just doesn't work. It's not stable. TWR16. So the issue with TWR is I'm actually not sure what that timing's supposed to do. I messed around with it a bit, and it's just like I've not noticed any like I tried it really loose, I tried it really tight. It doesn't make much of a performance difference, and it's like, okay, I have no idea what's going on with that one. But I'm just setting it to the cast latency here. So like the rule I've just kind of gone with is just set it to what the cast latency is, and that seems to work just fine. Anyway, so the thing with this 9900K though is that the memory controller is actually not as bad as I think originally thought it was, because there are CPUs with even worse memory controllers out there, but and other 9900Ks, but it still is like the TRCD 19 and the TRP 19 here. That is a memory controller limit. If I set those any lower, we would probably have to run like way more VCCSA or something. And yeah, that's just something you run into with really any Intel CPU is just, and actually I think Ryzen does it too, where if you just keep pushing like the TRCD, like the memory sticks, I am 100% certain can run lower TRCD, but the memory controller on the CPU can't. Not with, you know, dual rank memory. Even on a T topology board, like there's too much RAM and it just can't handle a lower TRCD. So that's why we're running 16, 19, 19, even though ideally I wanted to run like 16, 17, 17 or something. It just won't run because the memory controller won't handle it. And it's not like I'm being gentle with the voltages, as we are at 1.35 volt system agent. So you wouldn't actually want to run any more system agent than that. VCCIO is at 1.2, which is 100, like that's nowhere near the actual like safe daily limit, which is 1.35 volts. And the reason I have it at 1.2 is because I tried it at 1.25. I tried it even at 1.3 when I was trying to run the lower TRCDs, and it actually just made the stability worse. So it was just like, okay, so evidently the sweet spot for this specific configuration I'm running here right now is 1.2 volts VCCIO, and then 1.35 volts VCCSA, which we need the high VCCSA because it's 4133 megahertz, so we're high frequency memory. Tight timings, even though the TRCDs are all like the TRCD is terrible, but it's still pretty tight. And so, dual rank memory, high frequency, tight timings, you're going to need a lot of ECCSA. So that's what's going on with that. 1.35 volts SA, but the IO, if it goes any higher, it actually just makes the memory controller more upset. 1.5 volts memory voltage and 1.5 volts training voltage. Actually, it might make the board a little bit easier to train if you lowered or raised that. Like that might also clean up the long training, like the long memory training that we ran into when I first rebooted the system. Tweaking the training voltage up or down might actually clean that up. But I'm not going to put time into that because it's just like testing memory training. Well, I guess we can, the one way to test that is if we like you can shut down, completely shut down, cut the unpower the power supply, right? So cut AC power so that the motherboard isn't instead, so you don't have the 5-volt standby rail running. So I'm just gonna wait for it to. Oh no, it's training forever again. So with BDI, a lot of the time, the trick is actually to lower the training voltage. But we'll just power it down. Cut AC power. All right, so it's completely off. It doesn't even get 5-volt standby right now. Or at least it shouldn't once the capacitor's in the power supply discharge, because they can hold quite a bit of power for a while. So there we go, restored AC power. Let's see how it trains. I'm kind of worried that now it's not going to post. Because if you cut AC power, it needs to retrain. It doesn't matter if you have fast boot or not. It has to retrain. So it's basically a reset for the memory training configuration. No, it's handling it fine. Damn it, board! Why won't you do what I want? This is the thing about memory overclocking, is that it's really inconsistent, and you kind of just need to get used to that. Anyway, let's see if 1.4. Well, 1.4. No, let's just go all the way down to 1.4. It should it might be too low at this point for 4133 CL16, so it might not even post at all. But we'll see, I guess. Okay, well, that made it worse. You could also do the reverse and go up to 1.6 training voltage, because the training voltage is really only applied during the boot up sequence, so, having it a couple hundred millivolts higher is not, a couple hundred. Having it even 100 millivolts higher, it's just not going to really matter to your long-term stability, unless you're power cycling the system all the damn time. I might have set that too low. Yeah, I think I set it too low, because it doesn't want to train at all now. I wonder if I saved a memory I don't think I saved a profile. I'm very smart. I wonder if the last known good setting works. Because we might have to oh, no. Yeah, so this is what happens when you have your training voltage set too low. Yeah, it is definitely too low. I'm going to see if the board can, recover on its own. Like if it enters some kind of like overclocking failed thing. I really wish more motherboards had a safe boot button. The safe boot button is the greatest thing ever. Yeah, no, it doesn't look like it's gonna. I'm gonna have to clear the BIOS. I'm really not happy about that. Well, now we can see if I can remember all of the timings. I actually can, because the secondaries are like a standard set of secondaries that I just run everywhere. Because it's really convenient. Like that for that, what is it? It's like 54, 16, 16, 4, 4, 4, 8, 4, 6, 280 for TRFC, 12, 16, 2, right? Because RTP 12, TFAW 16, RRDs both to 4, WTR 4, 8, CCD 4, 6. Yeah, so now BIOS reset. So we shall see if, so F2 to enter advanced mode, F4, I'm going to see if last known good. Oh, it worked, yay! Oh man, I was so worried that wouldn't work. Okay. So last known good is like, the thing is it's a bit unreliable, but yeah, it worked. Perfect. Yeah, 11, yeah, all good. All is good, right? Yeah, all is good. So anyway, let's go here. 1.5. Let's see. Well, now that we cleared the BIOS, it's going to be retraining pretty hard. So let's see 1.55. So that's kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, initially I completely screwed it up. So I was like, that's the point of training voltage. Nope, nope, that's not the point of training voltage. That's just me, my incompetence. And it doesn't seem to have really made much of a difference even now. There's no real limit to how high you can set the training voltage, but like I wouldn't set it to 2 volts. Okay, especially if you're trying to boot settings for 1.5 volts, setting your training voltage to 2 volts is just like, that's dumb. That's completely unnecessary and just dumb. So anyway, yeah, so that's the overclock I managed to squeeze out of the BDI based 3600 megahertz RGB dominators. Yeah, I mean, for like, it's a 3600 megahertz rated memory kit. The thing is, like, the thing is, it's an RGB kit. So, you know, the main sort of reason Corsair expects people to buy it is because it's RGB. And it's just like, for me, it's like, well, I only care about how it overclocks. I couldn't really care less about the pretty colors. So, that's kind of that. But still, I'd say like 513 megahertz, especially considering that we are running 4x8, right? Like, if you're running this much RAM, running high frequencies is just difficult in general. Especially with, well, not as well, I guess the thing is, if you're running it on a dual channel platform, right, like Z390, it's hard because you're going to end up with dual rank memory. And, well, yeah, dual rank is just heavy on the memory controller. So that's kind of that. But hopefully this was somewhat helpful with, you know, if you want to overclock your own Samsung BDI based memory. It is worth noting, actually, one thing I forgot to mention is the Corsair Dominator RGB memory. It does use a A2 PCB layout. So basically, which I covered this in an earlier video, but that video has been so long ago that I don't expect anybody to go back and watch it again. So actually, we'll just take a closer look at the memory chips, which this is really dumb because the camera and the mic aren't set up for this. Well, let's see if I can move the mic for this. I guess I can just hold the mic. So we'll just power this down. And I'll pull a memory stick. I think it's this one, right? That's like, just... Okay, nope, that's not the one I wanted. I mean, that one is disassembled, but it's not the right one, is it? Yeah, this is the one that's like completely... So here's there's the memory stick. So this is an A2 PCB layout. The reason why it's called, well, A2 just basically means that you have 4 chips here and then 4 chips there in a group. There's other layouts. There's the A1 layout where you'd have an ECC, like pads for an ECC chip right here. But that's like, you won't see that on like high-end memory kits because it's a layout meant for like cost saving for, you know, like Samsung and Micron when they're selling when they want to make ECC and non-ECC memory kits using one PCB, because if you only have to run one PCB, well, it's cheaper than if you have to run 2 different designs, right? So anyway, and yeah, so this is an A2, and then there's the A0 where you also just have 8 memory chips is normal, though there are some PCBs that'll have like some memory kits that'll actually just use 4 memory chips total, but they're kind of, well, so you get those on low-end kits, but anyway, we're not going to talk about those right here. But an A0 layout would actually have all 8 memory chips in sort of even spacing, so you wouldn't have like one group of 4 right here and one group all the way over here. But this PCB layout is generally optimized for higher frequencies and is generally more compatible with modern motherboards, because the A2 layout is meant by JEDEC spec. It's designed to handle higher frequencies. And then it's just more modern. Like the A0 layout came out when X99 was a thing, right? Like Haswell E, that was the original DDR4 memory stick layout, was A0. Anyway, it's also kind of worth noting that Corsair does actually, like, this is a tweaked A2 layout, because obviously you have the RGB circuitry up top. Then you have this gold strip right here, which is actually for better thermal dissipation. So yeah, I don't know how much that does, but on paper that should be actually pretty effective, but I not like, I don't know how you'd test it, because also the PCB itself is just physically larger than a lot of other A2 sticks. So it's just like, well, you can't compare this against a vanilla A2 just because the PCB itself is larger and then it has the RGB. So, you know, it'd be hard to test how effective that actually is, but that is meant for heat sinking. What else did I want to talk about with these? Yeah, so that's an A2 Corsair Dominator RGB. They don't actually make an A0 layout just because for the RGB circuitry, it's more convenient to use A2 PCBs. Though this A2 is also customized somewhat in the actual way the memory chips are laid out. Not physically where they're located, but the way the traces are set up, because well, this PCB doesn't work the same. Like, I have other, like, basically my entire collection is A2 for B-die. And this PCB layout actually doesn't play quite, like, it plays differently with certain motherboards than some of the other A2 layouts I have. So, like, the Z390 Dark absolutely hates these. And then a lot of the other motherboards are perfectly fine with these. Like, on X299, these work great for me. On, well, Z390, they work just fine. What other platforms do I have? X570, they work great. Yeah, so it's just like the Z390 Dark absolutely hates them. Everything else is fine. So, yeah, and then the version number thing I'll also show you. Which one do I want to pull for that? Actually, either of these is fine, isn't it? Yeah, they both have smiley faces. So, anyway, version number. I think I put that too close to the camera. Still too close? Yeah. So, yeah, it is version 4.31. I mean, yeah, 4.31 right there. So, yeah, that's the Corsair Dominator RGB on Z390. I took way too long to do this. But, the thing is, I think initially when I tried to do this, I might have been pushing the memory too far, or I was running the TRCD way too low. I was probably running the TRCD way too low, because I think I was going for like 41, 33, 17, 17, 17, and it was just spewing out errors everywhere, no matter what I did, and I got really disappointed with it, and I was just like, I ditched it, and I was like, oh, I'll just work on something else. But that's not really, like, I wouldn't blame the memory sticks for this, because it's just like, the TRCD not going as low as you would wish it went a lot of the time is just like the CPU can't keep up. So, and that's very much like this CPU, if we're at 4400 megahertz, has a TRCD limit of 6, like you can't run 16. Just can't run, like if you want it to be stable, you can't run TRCD 16. There's nothing I can do about that. It's just like 4400 megahertz, TRCD 16 doesn't work. And then when you're running, 32 gigs of B-die, on a on a motherboard like this, and it's just like, yeah, I'd like to run TRCD18 at 4133 megahertz, and the CPU's memory controller is like, no, Buildzoid, that is not a thing. We're not doing that. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's it for the video. So thanks to Corsair for actually providing the Dominators to me. So they work really well for X299, and I mean for this right here, I mean, I don't know. Like, the thing is, I don't have any other 4x8 kits to compare against. It outclocks the Rev E by a mile. So the Micron memory I have. But I think that's more down to the specific set of Micron memory I have, more so than Micron memory in general. But yeah. So yeah, thanks to Corsair for providing the memory sticks. And that's it for the video. So thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. I'll just leave one of these over here. I mean, over here, so that it's more centered. Actually, we can put it on top of the GPU. There. So it's more centered. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. And if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon where you can support me directly. There's a link to that down in the description below. And what else was there? Right, I also have a Teespring store where you can pick up all kinds of, you know, merch like stickers, posters, shirts, mainly shirts. There is a new poster on the Teespring store. I think it looks pretty cool. You might want to check it out. Both the Patreon and Teespring help out immensely with running the channel. So, yeah, it'd be great if you know, considered either of the two options. And there's a link to both in the description, as I think I already mentioned. So, yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to hit the stop button.